Hi, friends. Welcome to session number 3 of Playbook of the Pros. And in this session, we're interviewing Noah Ostroff. And our conversation today is going to be all around how to think bigger and get bigger results. And Noah certainly has done that. Noah has an incredibly profitable and big sales team, which he then grew and expanded into brokerage, a leasing company, property management, construction, title company, mortgage, as well as other companies that aren't even real estate related. And he did all this through bigger thinking and getting bigger results. And that's the conversation that we're going to have with him today. Now, here's what I know about a lot of people. When we have a conversation and it's centered around thinking bigger, a lot of times the tendency is to kind of zone out and go, okay, I get it. I need to think big and we're going to get into that, but I'm not really going to understand how to do it. Well, guys, put a pin in that thought, because in this conversation, Noah is going to break down, and at the end, he's going to share 5 tools that he uses to actually think bigger. And you're going to get a recipe and a playbook for how to think bigger, execute against it to get bigger results. Guys, I'm excited to share with you this conversation with my good friend, Noah Ostroff. Thanks so much for joining us today on Playbook of the Pros. We're so excited to dig in with you and really understand what it means to think bigger and how you do that. So let's just kick it off with kind of the big basic question. What does it mean to you to think bigger?
It's actually, it's a good question to start off with, because when you ask a question like that, my first reaction is think bigger than what, right? You ask, what does it mean to think bigger? I think a lot of times people don't know what they're thinking bigger than, because they don't know what it is that they really want out of life, what they want out of business. What I like about the question, though, is it gets you to think differently. And what I mean by thinking differently is it gets you to think about stuff that you may not realize is possible, right? So I'll give you an example. If we're talking to real estate agents and we're talking about your business, and I sit down and I have a conversation with a real estate agent and I say, hey, what are your goals for next year? What's the typical response that I would get? It would be, well, I want to do 20% more than this year. I want to do 30% more than this year, right? That's the typical conversation. What the thinking bigger parallel to that conversation would be instead of saying, hey, I want to do 20 or 30% more than last year, it's like, hey, you did $10 million in your business last year. So they're saying, all right, well, I want to do 12 or 13 million or 15 million next year. I say, hey, why are you picking that number? Why not set a goal of 100 million? And when you set the goal of 100 million, right? Arbitrary number again, but thinking bigger than the 10 million, it brings up a lot of questions, and the conversation is different, because the business that you build at 100 million is going to be different than the business that you build at 10 and 15 million, right? The things you think about, the people you have to hire, the money you have to spend, the time that you have to put in, the investment that you have to make into that. So what I like about the question of thinking bigger is thinking differently, right? Thinking about what is possible. And that's really what I like about the question, because when we talk about that, a lot of times people are setting goals that they're comfortable with, but I like to ask the question, are your goals equal to your potential, right? Because if you're setting goals that are equal to your potential, then you're really starting to push yourself into avenues that are maybe a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So anyway, that's what thinking bigger means to me. It's allowing you to fund the big life that you want, the life that you've chosen, to be able to have the freedom to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, and to create that life by design. And you do that by thinking bigger and creating a world for yourself, that's big and abundant and fun.
Love that. And I love that you took the question of thinking bigger into a space of, what do you want out of business and out of life? Because I think at the core, that's the big question. And then the other thing that I love that you ask is, what's your potential? What's possible for you? So kind of help us out. How do we know how to do that? How do we know what's possible in terms of how bigger we can think?
The answer is sometimes we don't know. And it's actually a hard thing to do. Probably the hardest thing I've ever had to okay, this is not the hardest thing I've had to do, but one of the hardest things for me to kind of put words to is, what is your big why? Why are you doing the things you do? What is it you want out of your life? That was the hardest thing for me to do, because they said, well, why do you want to do 100 million, 200 million, 500? Like, why are you setting the goals that you're setting? And to me, the answer was always, I don't know. I just want to, because I can, because it seems fun. It's interesting. I never had like a true reason why I wanted to do it. And so for me, I sort of flipped the conversation into, for me, my life, a lot of it's about wealth building now, and sort of what I talked about before, and building that life, to have the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So when my kids are all in college, I have the ability to go out and travel more. I have the freedom. I've set up my businesses differently. And because I've been a little more purposeful about what I want in the future and having that long-term perspective on my life, it's allowed me to create the businesses and position my businesses and get involved in the businesses that allow me to have that freedom, but still have the financial wherewithal and still have the ability to have fun along the way. So how do you do it? You just decide to do it. I mean, honestly, like, I know that sounds simple and kind of a little bit silly, but the reality is you have to be willing to take a little bit of risk in your business to do that. You have to decide what you want to do. What I learned over time is not every great idea is a money-making idea. I've come up with some really great ideas over my life, and some of them are just really cool ideas that I think are needed, but there's no money in them, right? So first you have to decide what it is you want to do. And making sure that there's actually a path to profitability in there, and a big enough path to profitability. And then you just go out and do it, right? So a lot of times people don't know exactly how to do it, but you just get started, and you sort of figure things out along the way.
So, today is all about the future is now in Playbook of the Pros, and all our events focused on that. And so what I love is that, you're framing wealth as freedom. And that's a big thing around experience growth. We believe in that definition of wealth. It's all about freedom. What you want, when you want, how you want. And so for you, right? So you have a big long-term goal, right? You kind of shared a little bit. When your kids are in college, you'll be able to travel. You have the financial wherewithal to do such things. So how do you take that kind of someday goal, right, and bring it back into now and say, well, based on that, here's what I want to do today, and here's what I'm going to build for the next 6 months, the next year. How did you take that and bring it into today?
So I'll give you the high level answer, and then maybe we can drill down a little bit more. But I think about my businesses in three parts. Part number one is my job. What do I come to work to do every day? And for me, for the most part, it's being a real estate agent, running brokerages like that. Those are my jobs that I come to work every day to do. With the money that I make off of that, I then take that money and then I roll it into new construction flips. So I build, one of my other businesses is I build houses. So I take the money I make off of that, I invest it in new construction projects that I build, and then I sell. And then I usually get larger chunks of money from doing that. And then I take that money and then I roll that money into the long-term wealth building strategy, which is for me, the business of the future, right? Having that long-term perspective that allows me to fund that life by design, to allow me to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So that money gets reinvested into passive income opportunities. Mostly for me, it's rental properties. So I take my construction, experience and my construction company, and then I'll go buy pieces of land or buildings, and I'll build multifamily buildings or mixed use buildings that people will rent and pay me passive income, so that by the time my kids are in college, I have enough passive income coming in from those businesses to allow me to, go on vacation for a month and still have the money coming in to be able to do that. So that's the high level. So, right, you have sort of I call it the means to the end, right? The job that funds the next big opportunity, which allows you to fund that business of the future. The question I ask real estate agents all the time is, if you stop selling real estate tomorrow, how much money do you have coming in, right? And do you have enough money coming in to cover your personal expenses? And a lot of times I just get a blank stare, like the energy in the room just gets sucked right out, because a lot of people, that's a big eye-opening a big eye-opening question for them. They're like, crap, I really don't have any money coming in other than my active income, other than selling real estate. And for them, like, so maybe that's a realization. They don't want to sell real estate until they're 90 years old, but maybe at some point in their life, they're going to want to stop doing that, but they haven't positioned themselves far enough into the future to allow themselves to ever stop doing that, because they haven't thought big enough. They haven't had that long-term perspective on their life and their career. They haven't done the things to set themselves up for the future. So, it's a conversation that we try to have early on in people's lives, early on in their careers, to get them to think bigger, to get them to think further into the future. And so they can set their lives up to be able to, again, do what they want to do when they want to do it.
I love the framework of thinking big equals the ability to have wealth through freedom, or freedom through wealth, either way around. So I love the 3-part structure. And your job, right? Because you have, like, most of us have to earn income from a day-to-day job, right? And taking that, funding something, another investment that will maximize that money, right? But what I find is a lot of people stop at the flipping part. They take the money and they spend that money, right? Where you do the third step, which is you take that and put it into something long-term that you can get passive income. Why is that so important?
It's important because I think in terms of active versus passive, right? I think in terms of, I want my money to be making money for me while I sleep, right? The goal for me is to be making, the goal as far as financial is make as much money as you can while you sleep. And you don't do that through the flips, because the flips are where you get the largest chunks of money. But once you stop doing those flips, no more money is coming in, right? So unless you build up enough money in your bank account through those flips to be able to fund the rest of your life, then, you never know really when enough is enough and you don't have money coming in. And when I say fund the rest of your life, like, think about it like this. Like, I'm 40 years old. How long am I going to live? Am I going to live to be 80, 90, 100, 130? You don't know how long you're going to live. And you don't know how much money you need to live your life every single year for the rest of your life. We don't know in 30 or 40 years if we're going to need $200,000 a year or $1 million a year to live. We just don't know. And we also don't know how long we need to live. So trying to have the strategy of, trying to put as much money in your bank account as possible to fund the remainder of your life, whether you retire at 40, 50, 60, 70, we just don't know how long we're going to live. I don't like that strategy. But if you build up enough passive income, then it doesn't really matter how much money you have in the bank, because your passive income will be funding all of your personal expenses. And for me, the true definition of wealth is having $1 more of passive income than you have in personal expenses. So if you build up, again, you still don't really know how long you're going to live or how much money you need, but you kind of have a sense of, if you build your passive income high enough up, there's a very good chance of, no matter really what your expenses are, you're going to have enough money coming in from all of those passive income opportunities to fund all of your expenses. And you never really have to tap into your savings or your bank account. So that's the reason why I do it, to have that passive instead of active income. So
I want to move us, back into businesses, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they think, well, gosh, we're thinking bigger, we need to grow things.
Yep.
And so you decided at some point in time, right? You started as a real estate agent and grew a team, and then you transitioned into owning brokerages, into having leasing companies, into management, construction, title, mortgage. The list kind of goes on, and it kind of mushroomed out. From a thinking big standpoint, when did you make the decision that, gosh, that having the business is not enough, and I need to do other things that can support real estate sales?
So thinking big as far as this conversation goes, I thought about how people make money through a real estate transaction, all of the people that make money through a real estate transaction. And when I was only a real estate agent, when I was just doing real estate sales, the only way that I made money was from selling real estate, or the people on my team selling real estate. That was the only way. But then I took a step back and I started to think bigger, and I said, all right, who else makes money on a real estate transaction? Well, the title company makes money. right? Because we all have to get title insurance. The mortgage company makes money. The brokerage makes money. The insurance company makes money, right? And there's a few other things along the way. Then if it's investment property, the property management company makes money off of that. And the leasing agents, the rental company makes money off of that, right? And hey, those are all the people that make money, but also the property management company, that's a feeder for the sales business, right? So the property management company, those landlords are investors, right? They buy stuff. They're also sellers. They sell stuff. The tenants, before they become buyers, they're usually renters. So, we have 3,000 tenants that we manage, and those tenants become buyers. So that's a lead generator for my sales business, which again funds the brokerage, title, mortgage, insurance. Like you creating this flywheel of your business to allow each one of the businesses to fund one another, so that you create this ecosystem within your own world to self-generate your own business and to get as much of the pie as you can. So that's what the conversation of thinking bigger is in relation to the question you asked about all the businesses that I'm involved in.
So then how did you go from, okay, great thought, right? Who all makes money as part of a real estate transaction, right? I mean, you're knee deep in real estate sales. And so it's a natural extension, right? So that part I get. So then how do you go from, well, that's a really cool thought, to, hey, I'm going to take some action and actually go do it? How did you get from a sales agent and a sales team to starting to open and get into other businesses?
Well, if you put me on the risk scale of business, I'm much more willing to take risks than most other people. I'm willing to put my money up, put my money where my mouth is, right? One of the quotes that I sort of, one of the quotes that I sort of go by is, life is like Vegas. You have to put something on the line to get a return. And the reason I think about that is because I'm willing to come up with the idea, put my own money up in order to do that. So you asked a specific question, how do I do it? It all starts for me with research. Number one, the idea of, let's just start from the beginning. How do you go from being a real estate agent to owning a brokerage? Number one, you have to want to do it. I did not want to do it. I did not want to do it, but the opportunity came about. Not that I didn't want to do it. I just didn't ever think of doing it, right? I didn't want the liability or the risk, and I just wanted to focus on my sales business. The opportunity came up, and then just like any other opportunity that I get, I start with doing some research. What's it like to own a brokerage? How do you even do it? Should I own a Keller Williams brokerage? Should I go independent? Should I go with another company, right? So you start doing all the research on all of that stuff, and then you come to a decision that you think is the best as far as that. Then, you say, well, how do you do it? What's the paperwork? What kind of money do you need? What's the vision of the brokerage? And putting together sort of a plan of what you want it to look like, and how big can it be? How profitable can it be? Is it worth the hassle? Right. So you start doing all the research, talking to other people that may get involved, other agents that would be sort of early on people to join the brokerage. Hey, if I did this, is this something that you'd be interested in doing? Here's my hypothesis of how we would do it. Here's the vision of what I want to do. Is this something that you'd be attracted to? Is this something you're interested in? And once you start hearing enough yeses to those questions, then it starts to become more real. And then the research goes from, all right, this actually may be a good idea. Let's do it. So all the research I did on how to do it, now I actually put it into action. You have to put your head down and get the work done. Can I, what kind of stuff was I able to do myself? What other, what consultants or other people did I need to bring in to help me execute on this? Right. I wasn't able to do it myself. Right. So I had to get other people involved. I had to network and mastermind with other people that have done this before to find out how they've done it, just so I don't have to reinvent myself in terms of, sort of the basics of the roadmap. And then just like anything else, then once you sort of figure out enough of what to do, then you go do it. So it's taking something from vision to execution. That's something I'm pretty good at, coming up with the vision and actually getting things to the finish line, right? From getting from point A to point B. So you start the brokerage, and then you're like, all right, is the brokerage the most profitable part of this venture? And I think most people that own brokerages realize that the brokerage is probably the least profitable part of the brokerage pie, if you will. because the ancillary services, the title company, the mortgage company, the insurance company, they're typically more profitable than the brokerage, but the brokerage is the platform for those other businesses, right? So you build the platform big enough. In this case, it's the brokerage. You build the platform big enough so that it can support all the other businesses that are attached to it, title company, mortgage company, and those things, you figure, again, same process, figure out what you need to do. You do the research, you put a pro forma together, you put an org chart together and a plan of how you do it. You partner up with the people that can help you execute on the plan. And then you just go out and do it. And then you have to continue to talk about your vision and what you want to do and provide value to all the people that are going to be involved in it to make sure that it continues to be a successful venture. And that's sort of how it goes.
So, what I loved about what you just said there is, right, first thing you said is you've got to be able and you got to be willing to take a risk, right? Anytime you do something that's new, especially if you put your own money on the line, which is what it takes to get things going most of the time, either your money and or your time, both, there's risk involved, right? And then you say, well, then the other question that you asked, which I think is probably a really incredible question, is who can help me? Both who can help me in terms of how I'm setting this up, so I'm not reinventing the wheel, right? Because everyone's done everything that you've mentioned. Someone has done really well before you, right?
Correct.
And who can I find to help me execute it? Because I'm going to assume that you're probably not the best title person in the world.
Nope.
So you need you need people to run the title business and the title company so that you can do that. So I really appreciate that kind of a thought process is just be willing to do it. And then who can help me along the way? I think that's really, really a smart and wise thing, and probably why you're been able to build so much so successfully, because you're thinking about it in the right way. Now, as we kind of bring this to a close here, what encouragement do you have for people that are hanging out with us today as to how to think bigger and then ultimately take actions upon that bigger thinking?
Yeah, one other comment I wanted to make on the last thing you said is a lot of what I do is success through others. I know we talk about that a lot, and making sure you have the right people in your world that can help you execute on those things, right? And being able to identify who those people are, being able to attract them into your business and into your world, and being able to provide opportunities for them and have that success through them. So you asked me a question about kind of some advice and what I want to share. And in preparing for this, what I want to share with everybody are 5 lessons that I actually teach to my kids, and these are 5 things that I talk to my kids about, and I thought it would be very relevant to really anybody. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to share some of those. So. Lesson number 1, no one's going to come to your house and make your dreams come true, right? I teach them to live a life that you design, filled with experiences and people that make you happy. You don't have to work hard to build a life. I tell them you have to work hard to build the life that you want, but it's definitely worth the effort. The second lesson that I teach them is don't compare yourself to others, right? Because when you do, you're comparing other people's outsides to your insides. And remember that things aren't always as they seem. Everybody goes through the same ups and downs in life and in business and face many of the same obstacles that you do. And, just because you think other people are doing things at a certain way, you don't always know the true story, right? The third lesson that I teach them is success is never final and failure is never fatal. It's courage that counts, and don't be afraid to try new things, and remember to keep improving yourself. Make sure you're always improving yourself and getting better, because what we say is you automatically get older, but you don't automatically get better. So don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to be yourself. And even when being yourself may be different from everyone else. So despite all the peer pressure that kids face and we face as adults, just stay true to yourself. And even if other people don't always see the world as you see it. So the fourth lesson that I teach them was always focus on the journey and not on the destination. Because if you give the future all of your attention, the present will pass you by. And make sure to have fun along the way, right? Be in the moment, be silly, create lots of memorable experiences along the way. And Of course, I tell my kids, make sure you take a lot of photos. And the last lesson that I teach them, I think this sort of goes into the theme of thinking bigger, thinking different, having different conversations. The last lesson that I talked to them about was surround yourself with positive people who will bring you up and make you a better person, right? We say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So make sure you choose your friends wisely. Make sure you choose the people that you surround yourself with wisely. So those are the lessons I teach my kids. And I think part of the reason why I think that's important is thinking bigger is about understanding mindset, understanding perspective, and how thinking bigger is not just a business conversation, right? It's a life conversation, because, no one's going to come to your house and make your dreams come true, right? You have to go out, you have to take some risk. You have to do all that stuff yourself. What else do I want to tell you? You talked about thinking bigger, right? If you say, I forget who said this, but said, if you're not called crazy when you start something new, then you're not thinking big enough. Right. So those are the lessons that I would pass on about thinking bigger and just, having a different perspective on how you approach life and business and everything you come encounter with every day.
No, I'm pretty sure that was a mic drop moment right there, right? With the 5 lessons. So for those of you that are watching and paying attention, I trust that you took notes, wrote all that down. I certainly did. Great things to live by, because to your point, it's not just about business. You do all these things, you're going to have a big business. You do those things, you're also going to have a big life. And at the end of the day, isn't that why we're all here?
Yep.
No, I really appreciate your time, your wisdom, and sharing with us. We're much better for it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks again, Noah, for sharing how we can think bigger and get bigger results. The 5 lessons that Noah shared with us are really game changers if we can apply them every day, right? We all know that anything big that we want to do starts with the way we think. When we think in abundance and think bigger, we can then take the actions to achieve the bigger results. And so I really appreciate knowing Noah sharing those lessons with us. Really tactical, really motivational. The 2 that really jumped out to me, well, they all jumped out at me. Yet the 2 that I want to focus on right here as we wrap this up is the 4th and the 5th. Focus on the journey. One of the things that we do here at Xperience Growth Coaching is we have a 4-step path to personal performance and making sure that we have optimized personal performance. And the last step of that is focus. And we help teach you and train you and guide you to focus on the journey, because we all know it's in the journey where we actually take the steps to get to wherever we want to go. And so we create a plan and path that frees you up and opens you up to the journey that's ahead of you, the right journey for you, so that you can achieve both a big business and an experiential life. And the last thing that Noah talked about is who you surround yourself with is so important. So if you're looking for a relationship to kick off 2022, I invite you to check us out here at Xperience Growth Coaching Consulting. Look at the programs that we have, our consulting program and our business coaching program, and see if our relationship with us is the missing ingredient that's going to take you to where you've got this business plan, you've got these ideas, you've got these things that you want to do, and you just can't figure out how to make sure that it actually works. Well, guys, we're a solution in a relationship for that, to help get you from wherever you're at today through incredible thinking, clearing out all the baggage that gets in your way so that you can achieve the results that you want to achieve and hit the goals that you want to have in 2022, all the while having a lot of fun doing it. So check us out at our booth, Xperience Growth Coaching and Consulting, and we're excited to share with you and see if a partnership with us makes sense for you, your business, and your life. Well, friends, coming up next in our next session, we're going to talk with Marley Jackman. She's the director of launch for a place, and she's going to tell us how to take an agent on your team, or when you hire agents, take them from where they're starting to get them into rock star status super fast, super quick, super efficiently, and create a playbook around that for yourself and your team and the folks on your team. So stick around for that session number 4 that's coming up in a few minutes. Until then, check us out at the Xperience Growth Coaching and Consulting booth. See you around.